Recycling, something that we all should do. It should be a part of our daily lives. A lot of us fail at it, but let's not stop doing that at all. It's not only at an individual level, even corporates, bigger corporations, they have to follow some regulations when it comes to recycling and some of their packaging rules as well. And government recently notified such changes in plastic waste management rules, which are applicable from 2025. What are these rules? What do they mean for corporations? And what does it mean for you and I? How big is the recycling economy? What are some of the challenges? To understand all this and a lot more, I have a very special guest with us on the podcast today, Mr. Abhay Deshpande of Recykal. He's joining us. He's the founder, he is the leader there, and who has started the revolution for recycling as well. Mr. Deshpande, such a pleasure to have you with us on the podcast today. And it's so important to talk about recycling, right? As we were talking about it off air as well, behavior that needs to change and a lot needs to change.
Absolutely.
But thank you for being here. And I wanted to start with the basics first because there have been some changes which the government has announced with respect to plastic recycling and plastic packaging. Can you explain what these changes are? How does it differ from what we had earlier?
Thanks, Sonal, for having me here. The plastic recycling industry has been evolving, and the plastic waste management rules are there since last 7-8 years. 2016, 15, the government started with it. These rules were there globally, but India started it around 7-8 years back, and there is a second version of it which is now going to be implemented from 2025. So, if you look at the broader aspects or changes which has come in the rule is they have a better recycling rates now. So the PBOs, the producers, importers, and brand owners, we call them as, are under these rules. So they are now have to have a better recycling ratio from 30% to 50%. That means they have to collect that much of material for the footprint they have created
Okay.
and get it recycled. They have to enable it. They don't have to buy it. They have to enable it. Second thing which has come, which is a new thing has come, is that they have to use certain percentage of recycled content into their packaging.
Okay.
And that's new. That was not there earlier. Earlier it was just collect, get it recycled, that's all, right? So second part, that suppose they are using a plastic into their packaging, so they have to use anything from 5% to 30%, depends on the category. They have to use recycled content into their packaging. And that is, I think, is the major game changer. Then they have additional compliance rules. They have tried to bring a more transparency into the system. So earlier, this whole rule following was happening through paper. Right? They have to submit paper to the Pollution Control Board. So now they have launched a portal where now everything has to be uploaded and everything is more transparent now. So earlier it was more a paper, now it is digital part of it. And they have brought in the new things like deposit return system and all those new policies for the future which are brought in. So the majorly, if you look at two changes, better collection rates and use of the recycled content into their packaging. And the third piece which has come, which can be a game changer, that for the hard plastic, they have to use 10% of the packaging should be reused.
Okay.
So it's not just recycled, it's also reused. So I think these are the three major things which has come into the new policy, which is going to be in effect from April 2025.
Okay, all right. So there are a lot of changes
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
good ones, as you say. Let's go back a little bit because this word is used often, EPR or extended producer's responsibility. For our viewers, can you explain what does that exactly mean?
So the EPR, extended producer responsibility, till 2016-17, none of the producers, when I say producers, there's the importers, PBOs we call it as, producers, importers and brand owners. They were not responsible for the waste or plastic footprint they are creating in the market. They were just selling and they were not responsible. So the polluters pay principle comes here, and the government came up with a policy that all the producers who are creating a waste are responsible for it also. So they need to collect back that waste and get it recycled. So that called as an extended producer responsibility. This started a couple of categories like majorly plastic, then e-waste, batteries. Now tires also are under it, and soon textile and other categories will come under it. So anything we consume gets converted into a waste, which the government want it to be recycled and comes back into a circular economy. So the extended producer responsibility is the place which actually is the great tool to bring circular economy in reality, because there are limited resources at the end of the day, right? We can't just take new resources and use it. They need to be reused, they need to be recycled. And this can be a great platform to really implement and get it implemented by the multiple stakeholders in the ecosystem.
Very interesting. You said tires also into it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these tire companies this time did indicate that they had costs for EPR. And that is something that increased for them suddenly because they had to start paying for it. So they basically have to quantify the amount that goes out, the produce that goes out, and which is not coming back, and they pay accordingly. How does that work?
So what happens? Like for example, X brand has sold X amount of products in the market. So the quantity of plastic which gone into the market along with it. For example, Pepsi has sold a few million bottles, and along with that, say 100,000 metric tons of plastic gone into the market. So they
Yeah.
have to disclose that into their filing with the Pollution Control Board. That this year, last year we have put this much of plastic in the market, and they have to prove that. They have to say that this much of plastic, raw material we bought, this is material we sold, everything. Like very transparent.
Oh.
So, and then they are responsible to collect X percentage, that is from 30% to 60% of that, depends on the category. They have to enable the collection. So they have to work with the waste management companies, they have to work with the other rat pickers, wherever they could, and get it collected, and then make it that it goes to a recycler, and that is also official recycler.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the that is the cost which you're talking about. That's the
Ah.
additional cost which is going on the brands. But at the end of the day, because they are the ones who are
No, of course. It
creating
has
the
to be
pollution,
created.
so they have to take that responsibility somehow.
No, no, that's understandable. It just connected, right?
Absolutely.
Because these companies spoke about it as well in this quarter. So let's talk about how do companies usually go about collections or going about recycling? Is it a third party that they go to? Do they come to you? How big is this market?
So, if you look at the plastic part of it, we'll talk about plastic. The plastic last year was around 5 million metric tons of plastic. EPR was almost uploaded on the CPCB portal by 5,000 plus brands.
Okay.
Okay, so every brand has that liability except the MSMEs below 100 crores. So they have to disclose that this is a so total quantity will be around 5 million metric tons, which is last year. It is going to increase every year on year. So they need to now get 5 million or 50% or 60% of that collected back and get it recycled. So the approach they take, again, in India, if you know that policy is term, but real implementation of policy takes time because that goes through this own journey. So they then work with the recyclers sometimes directly. They work with the platforms like us. We have a platform. We have built a platform which where one side we have all the brands, and other side we have all these waste collectors,
Got it.
recyclers, and we it's a digital exchange basically where they can buy and sell the credits, they buy and sell the required documents. So they work with multiple stakeholders. It is also getting structured now a bit because initially no one had an idea, right? Suddenly the responsibility came on them. How do I collect? Because sitting in Bombay Nariman Point office, I don't know where my waste is, right? And
Yeah.
waste was the last thing people were bothered about.
Correct.
They were bothered about multiple things. And if you look at few years back, they were just happy to have a CSR report every year or impact report every year. But now this has become a reality. They have to prove that they have done something.
Yes.
So it has gone through this evolution. It was earlier was strictly implemented. Implementation also takes time in the country. But the brands also are learning. It is evolving. The more digital, now more transparency is coming. A lot of people took advantage of the loopholes of the system in the early days. But now it is really coming in a shape. And that's where you heard that brands are talking that our cost is increasing because of that. But at the end of the day, sustainability is not cheap. It is costly and it has
No,
to be
it is.
respected.
And if you don't practice sustainability, it could be more expensive than what it
Much
is
going to
right
be much
now.
more expensive
Yeah,
somewhere down the line.
absolutely. And the kind of plastic waste do we have, considering our population and considering uh, uh, everything that happens in the country?
Right.
And we are a developing country, so it
Yes.
is supposed to happen. So in that case, what are the different kind of plastics that we use in daily lives? It's very important to understand while we are using them.
Right. So there are 7 types of broad plastics, 7 different kinds of plastic. But I will talk about the major ones which are used by
Yeah.
us. And I will not go into technical
Yes.
names of those. Many people might not understand. But if you look at it, it's a first category is a rigid plastic. That is where the container for Pepsi, Coke, or coconut oil that comes under it. Second one is a flexible plastic like milk pouches, any other things are the flexible one. And third one is the multi-layer plastic. That is a for kurkure packet or other things which we use is called the multi-layer plastic or gutta pouch for that matter, right? It has multiple layers into this. And fourth one is a biodegradable plastic. So these are the four broad points of it. Majorly, the first three are used. First one is collected well, recycled also to a good extent, because there is a value ecosystem, there is a ecosystem build. Second one is little difficult to collect because of the weight issues, because like milk pouches, if you want to collect 200 milk pouches, the weight will not be that big. And third one is almost non-recyclable, that is multi-layer plastic.
Okay.
And the fourth one, the adoption is still in early stage, that biodegradable kind of plastic, that adoption is still in early stage. So there's the four large, if you divide into the total bucket, there are the four kinds of plastic which we use generally in our daily lives.
Okay. And the third one that you said, multi-layered, is not something that recycles so easily, which takes
That's
the most amount of time to recycle.
so multi-layer plastic. The challenges are multiple because first of all, the weight of that plastic, if a Kurkure packet or any chips packet you take, 2 grams, 3 grams. If to collect 1 kg of waste, you have to 300 or 400 pouches you have to collect. Number one. Number two, there's no value for it. Today, there is no scalable technology which has been built. People are still trying. There's investment happening, innovation happening there. But today also, like there are cases where people make benches out of it or make some crazy product out of it, chairs out of it. But these are not problems which are, and 50% of the plastic used is this multi-layer plastic. And that generally don't get collected. And that goes into ocean, gutters, everywhere it blocks. And that is the one of the largest challenge in the market. And recycling technology also need to evolve there. In the couple of companies are trying to do it at scale, but still it is not reached that scale yet.
Collection is a problem here, right? Because
Big
maybe if
problem.
I'm using it, it's just one packet of chips. I might just throw it away. Recycling that
Absolutely.
becomes a problem.
See, the biggest challenge in this industry and in this waste management space is the behavior of the consumer. So if you look at waste, right, and just give example, at our home, we have paper, right? None of us have thrown paper in a dustbin after reading it. Because since childhood, we are trained that paper is valuable. And we just bit it at the corner of the place, and then at the end of the month, 9 rupees kg, 8 rupees per kg, we're selling it. But the plastic, as soon as we consume, the first thing we do it, either litter it or throw it in a dustbin. Although the plastic is more valuable than the paper.
That is so true.
And the third category is e-waste. E-waste, the leaders is a legacy waste. 60-70% of the e-waste is lying at people's houses. I still have a phone which I used in 2002 because I bought it at 30,000 that time. That perceived value of 30,000 rupees is still in my mind. So I don't throw it. And old keyboards, old mouse, none of us throw it because वो काम आएगा. That one word काम आएगा is a problem for e-waste because वो रट देते हैं कहीं पे घर पे. So I think that is creating a challenge. So our behavior for each waste is different. So for particularly plastic, if you want to bring a behavioral change, we need a lot of different type of approaches. And we'll talk about it in the podcast later that one of the things which I personally feel can be a game changer for the industry will be a deposit return system. And which is also been mentioned in the plastic waste management rules in earlier version also and this version also.
Okay, so I will probe you
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
that.
We'll talk about it. And that is
We'll
that will solve the plastic littering problem at a large scale in the country and bring large scale behavioral change also.
I really hope it does because you have been doing it for such a long time and you're very patient, clearly. But when I see people just throw it away without even giving it a second thought that it can maybe reused or maybe it can be recycled, that's really painful to see. But of course, that is a behavioral problem that the country is facing.
Absolutely.
But is it the same issue globally? Where does India stand when it comes to recycling rules versus, say, global regulations?
So globally, these regulations has been in effect for 15, 20 years. So we are late in the party, first of all, right? The EPR has been there in multiple countries for long. I was talking about DRS, deposit return system, has been implemented in 40 countries, plus in 70 plus states across these 40 countries. And the collection ratios there are 80% plus. Germany collects 96% of their plastic because the DRS is implemented there 15 years back. This need policy. This is not a 1% or one company can do it. It's a policy decision. So the the European Union has the recycling rules been implemented 15, 20 years back and very strictly. EPR they have multiple rules and they have got implemented also. So definitely the European countries and other part of the world is ahead of us there. But we are not far behind. We are also there. The 7 years of EPR and the new plastic waste management rules, we are there. But without policy, nothing can happen these days. That is very clear that the policy is going to play a major role. Otherwise, we are happy to be what we were. That we don't change our behavior unless there's a fear or a dread, right? We're very happy to be what we are. So I think definitely globally the countries are ahead. There are many, even the World Bank has a huge focus on this. World Economic Forum, we go every year. Half of the talk is about circular economy. So the world is talking about it. And I think we're seeing that multinational companies, the larger companies are looking at it seriously and also investing into that. And India is not far behind.
So explain that to us then. How does this DRS work, or deposit return
Okay.
system?
So it's very simple, right? When the product is sold to a consumer, say a Bisleri bottle is sold for 20 rupees, there is a deposit of 2 rupees on it when I buy a bottle. Now, I consume the water. The first thing I do today is just litter. If there is a deposit of 2 rupees which I have paid as a consumer, I will be conscious about it. I will return that bottle. If I return that bottle to a collection point or a reverse vending machine, I get my 2 rupees back. So that brings a behavioral change. So we have been working on it for last 5 years. We have invested, we have built a whole digital system which is required for India. The European market, everything works with the machines, reverse vending machines, where you DIY market, do it yourself market, right? But India is not a DIY market. India is a DIFM market. So do it for me.
Okay.
Right. So as soon as we land in India or Singapore, we are in the queue, we use machines ourselves. But in our airports, we need somebody to get our boarding pass also printed. Right? So that's a behavior. Might be a problem in our own air and this thing because we become DIFM.
We have a lot of people
Absolutely.
also. We need to employ them,
We
right?
do. So that behavior. So basically, in those countries, it is done through reverse vending machines. In India, so here how it works. For example, government brings a policy. It's a state subject. Assume that the state Maharashtra decide that we want to implement DRS in Maharashtra state, and they can take that. They can make a policy for it. Once this policy is made, this is under EPR. Okay. This is one way of implementing EPR. Okay. So now what happens that every brand has to make sure that, and they define the deposit also. They can say 5 rupees for liquor, 2 rupees for plastic bottles, 1 rupee for those gutka pouches. Now, after eating gutka, I will not litter it now. I will keep it in my pocket because there is 1 rupee.
I think gutka eaters should pay more, right?
Small the pouch, more should be the deposit. That's what I generally tell people. But on air, I don't want to make that. So what happens then? The brand has to print the QR codes on the unique QR code on every container, sell it, and government opens a escrow account. A not-for-profit organization gets formed by government. They open a escrow account. Suppose Pepsi is selling 1 million bottles in Hyderabad, in Maharashtra this week. They will put a deposit in that escrow account. They will collect that money from the distributor. Distributor collects from retailer. Retailer collects it from the consumer. So the consumer's 2 rupees now in the escrow account. Now his behavior is that he will consume it, bring it back, give it to a collection point, or then get them. So it needs to be a policy decision. But globally, it is very clearly proven that 80% plus collection ratio, large scale behavioral change. Every house after that will have a cardboard. See, today what happens? We eat Maggie, right? After that, first thing we do is put it in dustbin. If there is a 2 rupee deposit on that, there will be a cardboard box in every house. Everything will go into that dustbin. Now, at the end of the month, either we'll go to a collection point and give it, or ask our home servant to go and sell it, right? Or give it to them. They will get the money. So whoever returns gets the money. And this brings a last, because as soon as the plastic goes into a dustbin, it gets contaminated. And it loses 30 to 40% of its value because there are more efforts required to clean it again. So it is directly, so plastic quality is much better. Ethical sourcing, there is no child labor involved into it. And large scale collection, large scale behavioral change. So we feel that if India somewhere in the next 10 years, if 50% of our states bring DRS and gets it implemented, 30-40% of the plastic littering and plastic problem will start. And these rules will be implemented in the real sense.
Hmm.
Today it's more collection,
Yeah.
paper, they need certificate, all that stuff. It's more a little bit of greenwashing, I will call
Yeah.
it as, right? If you want to really make it really work, DRS is the so. Because when I say 30% material is required, now the brands need to use 30% recycled content into their packaging.
Correct.
Where is the material,
It's correct.
right? Then is assume that 50 lakh metric tons of 5 million metric tons, or 30% of that is 15 million metric tons. And you need high quality material.
Hmm.
See, today what happens, today the collection happens, it go to a recycler, he makes a granules, and it goes in textiles.
Hmm.
It's downcycled. It is not bottle to bottle.
Hmm.
Now government want that to be used in that bottle making
Hmm.
itself again.
Hmm.
Then you need to make sure that the product which is available, even raw material which they are getting, if it is highly contaminated, cannot be used. And food grains so has a different challenge. If it's for food, for example, if Pepsi want to use it, the product has to be much better quality because I'm
Hmm.
consuming it.
Correct.
So I think there are, so DRS is, from my perspective, and we are a firm believer that the plastic littering, plastic problem will get solved only when the DRS get implemented at a large scale, and that will bring that large scale behavioral change. And I will you why I'm so confident. So 4 years back, when Modi ji spoke about littering in Kedarnath, there was a Man Ki Baat, he spoke about it. A lot of people were littering there. Millions of people go there every year. Lot of littering. So there's no solution. So he spoke about it in Man Ki Baat, and at the same time, the district magistrate reached out to us that we wanted to try something because Prime Minister is talking about not a good thing about them, right? So we went there and we implemented country's first deposit return system there, from Rudraprayag to the top district. First year we collected 1,60,000 bottles
Wow.
in 2 months time.
In 2 months.
2 months time. Next year, last year was 8,60,000 bottles. This year we implemented it in Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri, Yamunotri, all the 4 places. 5 million bottles were aiming to collect. We already collected 2.5 million bottles in first part of the journey. Last year behavioral change. We put initially, and I will just give a context also. So initially we thought we will not charge deposit. We'll give you ₹2 incentive.
Hmm.
In first 1 month, only 46 bottles came.
Oh, wow.
So people don't like it. They were like, but and deposit also the government, and this was a mandate by government. So we as a private party cannot do that. The local administrator decided that I want to put a deposit of 10 rupees. So 20 rupee water bottle became 30 rupees. As soon as they paid 10 rupees, they become conscious. After consuming, they started looking at the collection points. And that became a game changer. We got a national award for that from the Honorable President. And that actually made a lot of states reaching out to us and talking to us. Because today, definitely people are looking at doing something real on the ground. And I'm seeing that change. Although it's early things.
That's
But
incredible.
4 states are in active conversation with us. And if all goes well, we might see the first deposit system next year in India.
Let's just hope that comes sooner than later. And all the best to you for
Thank
implementation
you.
and the conversation with authorities that you have as well. And nobody would want to pay more. Maybe they can get less, but they don't want to pay more. So that
Actually,
makes
they are not
sense.
paying more. It's just if I'm
No, of
consuming,
course, it's coming back, but the
uh,
fear that you have to pay more,
absolutely.
it
Well,
really
yeah, yeah.
works in the
But that only
favor.
will bring the behavior change.
It
Otherwise, they're
does.
happy. On the beaches, we go, we consume beer, throw the bottle there, and happy.
That
It's
is.
all the going to the ocean right now. Everything is going to the ocean.
That's a problem. So, with you talking about they have to use recycled packaging
Yeah,
from here on, have companies already started reaching out to you, maybe the industries, because that will require a lot of efforts. It's a big change that they have to
big
say.
change.
Are they
So,
ready for it? Is the industry ready for it?
frank answer from me: the brands and the whole industry is not ready for it yet, to a scale which government wants to implement it. So they want, in the rigid category, they want 30% of the recycled content to be used from next year onwards. Challenge is not about the cost and intent. Intent is they have to do it because it's a policy. Cost, okay, they initially the cost will be higher, somewhere it will come down once the ecosystem is built. Problem is the availability of the material. Again, it goes down to the source. Where do I get material? Number one. Number two, in last couple of years, a lot of investment has happened on the recycling side of it. People have put in a lot of factories, companies like Reliance, companies like Sri Chakra. There are multiple recyclers. There are funds who are investing on these companies. There's a fund called Circulate Capital, which is also investor in us. They have been investing on this space heavily, and there are multiple funds, right? infrastructure is getting built, but I don't think the infrastructure is ready to a scale which the policy required to be
Mm.
implemented. So might be what will happen there, the 30% will become 10% next year.
Mm.
That's how it happens, right?
Mm.
But subsequently, what I've seen that this has to be done and government will make sure that
Mm.
they do it.
Mm.
But the timelines might 25 will become 26,
Mm.
30% will become 10%, all those changes happening. But there is an intent and the investment happening towards that. How much it will cost, nobody knows.
Mm.
Because there are more takers, less material available.
Got it.
So there will be auctioning, in fact, right?
Mm. Wow.
People will write, the price will go up. The virgin is
Mm.
available for 100 rupees, the recycle will be available for 200 rupees, and cost will go
Mm.
up initially.
Mm.
But somewhere in India, there is opportunity. There are entrepreneurs who will build ecosystem, they will build recycling infrastructure, and companies like us will bring material to them. So I
Mm.
think overall it will happen. But if you ask me the next year, we are not yet ready for it.
Okay. So your waste is actually a money making machine for you. So don't treat it like a waste. You can actually make money out of it.
There is nothing
Why?
called waste in this country.
Yeah, waste is gold.
It is a, if I have seen that behavior of the consumer, we as Indians, we don't treat anything as a waste. For us, also the old cloth, old banyan, we use it for 5 different purposes. First we wear it, then we use it for cleaning something, then last is pocha, and then only it goes there. So we are very conscious about it.
Let's hope we do it with plastics as well, because that's a
Plastic,
major
that is
issue.
required a behavioral
That's
change.
the issue. What is primary and secondary plastics? How does that differ, and how does the industry or the government look at these two?
So the primary is something which the virgin material which has been bought by that has been used today. Secondary is the recycled material. So what happens today, as I was telling you, that people have to use 30% of secondary material into the, so they have to 70% primary, 30% secondary.
Mm.
The availability of primary is plenty. It's
Mm.
like companies
Exactly.
like
Mm.
Reliance, and the big players around that, and that's there.
Mm.
It's been there for years. The secondary is a challenge, and that
Mm.
is where the
Exactly.
sustainability comes in
Mm.
picture. And somewhere these targets are going to 50%, 60%.
Mm.
Now, as per the mandate, they want reuse to be also promoted. So
Mm.
10% of the material to be reused.
Mm.
How do I get it back?
Mm.
Now, assume Pidilite is selling Fevicol,
Mm.
and the people are buying it. Now, Pidilite has to make sure that 10% of the containers comes back to them.
Mm.
They clean and use it. The problem is, how do I take it back? So
Mm.
that's where we are trying to come in picture. We are helping them by, so they do buyback price, incentives. So we are trying to do, and we have done some projects around it, and we are seeing a decent success. But at a scale, time will tell.
Of course, it's a big country we have, right? So,
Not one
the
country. We have 34 countries inside one
together,
country.
that's true. So, Mr. Deshpande, tell me, how does the pricing work here? Because sometimes you hear scrap prices have gone down, scrap prices have suddenly shot up. What decides that? Like, because you said at the end of the day, this is something which is not much in supply, shouldn't be going higher most of the times.
No, so the challenge here is there is no standardization of this. There is no pricing index,
Hmm.
neither in the secondary material collection side of
Hmm.
it, neither in the material which is like secondary material
Hmm.
built created after recycling.
Hmm.
There's no index right now.
Hmm.
This is not even considered as an industry yet.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, fortunately, the whole recycling, it has to get into that industry shape sooner or later, right?
Hmm.
If we want to really get the circular economy in place, the pricing is very informal in nature. It's still 90% of the collection happens by informally. Uh, the one of the report I was reading a couple of years back when I started this business, I saw on the government report that 1.5% of India's population gets food every day because someone in their family is working in waste management ecosystem. 1.5% of India's population. Now that's big
That's
because
huge.
somebody is doing a collection, they have a family of four.
Hmm.
That is how I'm talking about. So, but 90% of those people are in a very, very bad state because the ecosystem is so informal. There is a rat picker, then there is a small kabadi wala, large kabadi wala, aggregator, trader, then the recycler. So it goes through a plastic bottle, goes from my dustbin. It reach by the time it reaches the recycler or a water body or ocean, it goes through 6 to 7 different hands.
Hmm.
That is the issue there because there is no traceability, there is no ecosystem does exist, and that's the
Hmm.
reason there is no pricing. The price at the first level will be 16 rupees. By the time it reaches to the recycler, it's 45 rupees. Right. So again, it is Earlier, it was 100% informal.
Hmm.
At least with EPR, it has brought in some kind of formalization of the industry. So EPR is definitely, as I said, can enable circular economy
Hmm.
and can formalize the informal.
Hmm.
But then it need to be implemented its true spirit. So
Execution
that
is key.
true spirit of the implementation. If it
Correct.
just become a paper trade, you want certificate,
Hmm.
then it is not going to get there. So
Makes sense.
everyone need to be conscious about it and serious about it.
No, no, absolutely. You can, of course, do every celebration you want. You can consume as much as you want, but you need to think about what happens
Absolutely, what
next.
adopted that.
That's what responsible celebration is all
Absolutely.
about, right? So, which is the industry which sees the most amount of plastic pollution? Is it or plastic pollution or pollution in general? Like, do we have any stats there?
No, I think from plastic perspective, definitely the FMCG
Hmm.
space is quite large because they are the
Yeah.
packaged food is
Yeah.
the term.
Hmm.
You go any store, plastic is used, and
Hmm.
there is no alternative. Frankly,
Hmm.
whatever people talk, and I personally feel that plastic is not bad.
Hmm.
Littering is bad.
Hmm.
Behavior is bad. If plastic handled well and plastic comes back in the system, the way we bring back paper, nobody talks of paper. Although it is not, it is biodegradable. It can be. It is not. It doesn't stay in the world for 100, 300 years. But still, paper there is no issue. Paper for paper also you have to cut trees, but it
Hmm.
gets recycled. We have that ecosystem built.
Hmm.
Plastic, the challenge is the behavior.
Hmm.
So FMCG space is one of the largest consumer of plastic, and most of these post consumer plastic gets generated through them only. Might
Hmm.
so FMCG has thousands of companies, right? Pepsi, Coke, Bisleri, you take any name,
Hmm.
they are huge generators. Unilever, for a matter,
Hmm.
every soap has a plastic.
Has to,
Everything has
yeah.
a packaging.
So banning plastic is not
Not a
not a
solution.
solution.
Plan, what is this, what is the alternative? Then we have to go back to the old worlds of refilling and
Hmm.
go with those containers to get the product, or
Hmm.
go to a shop where everything is open paper packaging.
Hmm.
Not going to work. I think we have
We are
crossed
way
that
past
crossed
that.
it. And unless we find alternative which doesn't seem to be visible right now,
Hmm.
doesn't seem to be
Hmm.
coming anytime soon, that
Hmm.
let's ban plastic, let's use XYZ, not going to happen.
That's not feasible.
So
I
rather
think
than
it's
banning, spend on behavioral change.
in behavioral. So we are not seeing that increase in paper packaging because that was something that everyone was like, okay, because we're against plastic, we'll see more paper packaging. That's not something which is
Not
happening.
going to happen. See, some 1.5%,
Hmm.
0.25% negligible
Hmm.
impact will be there.
Hmm.
But at a large scale, paper is not a replacement of
Hmm.
plastic. Right? I
Got it.
can't sell many products in paper.
Paper. Yes.
There was a initiative that will do refilling. People
Hmm.
thought we'll do refilling. So I
Hmm.
buy a coconut oil, and then next time I go with my container and get it refilled. Feasible? Not feasible.
Not feasible.
Not
So
possible.
it's in this.
In one apartment of 200 flats, you'll have 500 brands used there. You
Yes,
can't refill them.
it's not possible. It's not. So best to recycle.
Best is to recycle and get it.
So, Mr. Deshpande, I wanted to ask you if now you said EPR is great, the deposit system would be great. Is there any other way you think we can formalize this industry more? Maybe tax rates, maybe government intervention in other ways?
So I think, see, as I said, for the better waste management, for circular economy, and for recycling, policy is the very, very important aspect. And I'm happy that the EPR and DRS kind of policies will help in happening that. Taxation definitely is the issue.
Hmm.
I think the plastic waste is taxed at 18% GST, and that's big
Hmm.
for the world which was never paid tax before. For
Hmm.
the informal sector, I'm talking
Hmm.
about. It was a completely cash driven economy for ages.
Hmm.
Now, suddenly, if they have to pay 18% tax,
Hmm.
they shy away from them. And
Hmm.
then they find ways of not doing business formally.
Hmm.
So, if the government can bring down the tax to say 5%, right? It
Hmm.
was 5% in the initial days.
Hmm.
Last 4 5 years, it got changed. I see lot of formalization, scope, and better collection,
Hmm.
better traceability, and people doing business formally.
Hmm.
There's a much bigger opportunity. But
Hmm.
again, that's a policy and a government call. But that I can see that every day. That if that happens, it can bring a dramatic change. So, true implementation of EPR, bringing the policies like DRS and implementing
Hmm.
it, and better tax rates for recycling industry. If these three things are taken care, I think I will not say 100% change,
Yeah.
but at least a significant change can be seen.
Any change is a good change if
Absolutely.
it's in the right direction. It's been such an insightful chat with you. So before I let you go, I have to ask you, you're in that industry where you need a lot of patience, right? You said behavioral change is as important as policy change in that case. Tell us, what is the plan next for Recycle? How did you plan on starting it? Because you've done so much before. You're independent director on different listed companies as well.
Yeah. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my third baby. So every startup is a baby because they're different. However successful you are, the next one is going to be a new one. So this is my third startup. First one I did in e-commerce space. Second I did in software as a service space. And after exiting the last one, I was looking for the next big thing, what to be done. In meanwhile, I thought of becoming an investor. I became an angel investor also, but then realized during that investment period that I'm still a horse where people can bet rather than I betting on the horses. So decided to become a horse, and I was looking for opportunity and somewhere that instinct of entrepreneur. I felt that West management looks like a space to disrupt. There is a need of between formalization here. Although we were advised that why are we doing this, internet with कचरा कैसे बिकेगा, these were the questions asked to us.
Yeah.
Why are you spending money, better do some CSR. All these suggestions also came to me. And why are you getting this place, there is mafia, so 100 things, right? And
Yeah.
thanks to Netflix, every alternate serial the villain is from West management industry. So mafia wale kachre wale right. So there is a perception about seeing the industry. So but then I felt that this is the place we want to do. And the whole intent was that we wanted to build something which has an impact also
Yes.
this time. So, and this has an impact. And we go every day, we almost channelize around 2,000 metric tons of waste, 3,000 metric tons of waste every day, which goes to a right destination, doesn't go to a landfill or ocean. So that gives us that satisfaction. So that's the reason we call it as a startup with purpose. Although we wanted to make money, we want to make profits, but with the impact as a byproduct for it. And that is how we landed in that. When we started, frankly, no idea about it. Read a couple of reports of FICCI, CII, that India generates this much, that much, but those reports there is no data. First of all, there is no data of waste. And when we look at the data, it was like some people did survey at some 500 houses and extrapolated to 1.4 billion people. Every person generates 20 gram of plastic. How? Nobody knows, right? But India generates much more. So then we went into that, spent 2.5 years without expecting any revenue. We call it as a Harvard MBA in Waste Management, 25 people team. 3 years, no revenue target. Just learn the space.
Just like
And that actually made
helps.
our fundamentals very strong. We worked with rack pickers. We went to Kobadiwala houses. We actually understood what the challenge they're facing, how do they do business, how their day goes. That deep level of engagement with that industry gave us some insights which actually made us to 2019, 16 we started. Till 19 we were in that MBA phase and then internship of 6 months. April 2019, we converted all the learnings into business. And thereafter, there's no looking back. We have been growing 3x, 4x every year.
And it's an
Funded,
investment heavy business?
not
No,
really.
not
It's an
really.
asset
It's,
light
it's an asset
today,
light
light
model,
model.
right?
But and it was profitable for first 3 years. Last 2 years, we have invested a lot on DRS. That's the reason. A lot of investment in some technology. We have built our own reverse vending machines. India, made in India. We have made that. So a lot of investment has happened. So, and we got great investors. We have Morgan Stanley as investor. Mr. Ranjan Pai recently, Manipal has invested. So great
Amazing.
guys on the investors. And I think people wanted to invest. There is right now the challenge in this industry is that there is more money and less horses. So there is private equity guys have raised $1 billion, multiple $1 billion funds have got net zero fund, circular economy fund, $1 billion, but they have to write a minimum check of $100 million. But
Yeah.
where are the horses? So I think we almost talk to two private equity guys every week. Stay engaged. You never know. We're not raising any money right now, but the
But
capital was never an issue for this business, and I didn't. It's been the right time at the right
right
place.
place. Let's hope that continues to be the case. More power to you. And as you said, behavioral change. Let's
Yes,
just hope closer to the Independence Day. We are in the 78th year. So let's hope
absolutely,
that we think getting independence from our waste habits at least
absolutely.
should be the priority. But it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your insights.
Thanks for having me here, Sonal. Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we'll take your leave on this edition of Climate Clock podcast with the hope and a promise that we all treat our waste the way it should be and not litter our country. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for more episodes.